Hi, Pod fans. Max here. Barry's here too. Barry's not here. So Burnley and Scott Parker are parting ways by mutual consent. This obviously happened after we recorded the pod. It's not enough for an emergency pod. Our respect to Burnley fans, but we apologise. But we'll talk about it on Monday for a bit, I imagine. This pod instead begins with the greatest game of all time. Atleti won, Arsenal won. Here it is. Thanks for listening, watching, etc. Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly. All square then in Madrid, Atleti and Arsenal weren't going to give us PSG Bayern, but they gave us a different kind of entertaining. It was tense and it was controversial, and Arteta and Simeone probably covered more ground than anyone else on the pitch. It's impossible not to talk about VAR or handball here, so apologies in advance. But get ready to tick off all your favourite phrases. Natural position, 80% chance of scoring a goal, clear and obvious. I'm boring myself and we haven't even introduced the panel. But a good result for Arsenal, who can go back to stressing about the title race at the weekend. Home to Fulham, while Man City have to wait until Monday to go to Everton. Then there's the relegation dogfight, West Ham at Everton on Saturday. All new injury problems, Spurs at Villa on Sunday. If they both win, big if, they could drag some others into it. Then there's the EFL permutations, Mudrik's 4-year ban, your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hi, Max.
Hello, Nicky Bandini.
Morning.
Good morning, Lars Sivertsen.
Hello, Max.
So then let's start at the Wanda Metropolitano. Spice says, how about some VAR chat for a change? Andy says, there were more shots in the Atleti-Arsenal match than PSG Bayern, but I guess that doesn't suit certain narratives, does it? I think Andy is trying to make the case that this was a better game, and it wasn't a better game. But, Nicky, with a dog in the fight, I mean, there was real tension and there was real drama in this game still.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think if you put this game as it was the night after PSG Bayern, of course you go, that wasn't as good as that one. If you put it next to Arsenal Newcastle, you think, wow, what a great game of football. So it's all about where you draw your contrast, isn't it? I thought it was a good game. PSG Bayern was spectacular, brilliant, loved every second of it. And I think this was a different kind of game completely. And we can't expect every game to hit that bar of best game you've seen all year. But I thought this was a game that was interesting and worthy of a Champions League semi-final. I thought two teams that ebbed and flowed at different points of the game had the upper hand. Two teams that both definitely had ideas about how they were going to try to win this tie. Two teams that were perhaps weakest in the finishing department, and perhaps without the penalties we would have ended up with a 0-0 and we would have had a different perspective on it. But they both created chances. I mean, really right from the start. Obviously, Julian Alvarez gets that save out of David Raya early, but I thought Arsenal did well in the first half. I thought, again, really early on, you had Madueke standing up that cross to the back post that you had two players both running out that didn't quite go right, but I thought they were creating chances early on. I thought they had managed to do something that was really important by pushing the two fullbacks really, really high up. In the first half, they really neutered that threat that Atletico can bring with their runners in transition. We barely saw Ademola Lookman in the first half, and you had Simeone being forced to drop back, and he ends up coming off at half time, and that was I think a really important change by Atletico, and Atletico responded, which was nice. I like that back and forth when you see that between managers and they go, okay, that didn't work for us in the first half and we'll do something different. And then Atletico, I thought were really, really good for the first half an hour of the second half. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought it was an interesting back and forth, and I think that it's a shame that we will ultimately have to talk a lot about penalty decisions because they did, of course, decide how the game ends up.
Yeah, I mean, just on that change for Atleti, John says, is Simeone's decision to take his own son off at half-time in their biggest game of the season, the football equivalent of Michael Corleone having Fredo killed at the end of Godfather Part 2. But it did change things, didn't it? Like it felt to me like Arsenal had that sort of Arsenal-y control in the first half, and then Atleti were a lot better until perhaps more Eze than Saka, but both of them came on, and then Arsenal sort of got a bit of control back.
I feel like Fredo Corleone was always kind of a waste man, but Giuliano Simeone was obviously the key player in the tie against Barcelona, so he kind of came into this encounter with some merit. But yeah, clearly that was a change that helped quite a lot. I also just wonder if just getting the penalty against, which I don't think that one was controversial, really. That was kind of clumsy from Hansko. But I wonder if that fired them up a little bit, because they just seemed to be a little bit more on it at the start of the second half. They were more like what you expect from Atletico Madrid in the second half. They're not it's not your dad's Atletico Madrid. They're not sort of defensive titan anymore, but they are usually quite aggressive and feisty. I thought the second half of this was a good version of this game. I thought the first half was quite boring, but in the second half, Atletico was kind of a little bit more fired up, and I thought it got entertaining. And maybe that switch mattered, getting Llorente a little bit more involved. But also, I think there was a slight sort of attitude check as well. Maybe they got told off at halftime. That's also possible.
We do have to talk about the decisions. I guess that the first one, I think, Barry, it's a shove. You must be pleased to see a shove being penalised in the box. And Gyökeres actually does well. I thought he did quite well in this game.
I haven't been impressed at all, particularly with him this season. He's got 19 goals in all competitions, which is decent for his first season at a new team. As good as Arsenal, but I still think he could offer a lot more. I think he's one-footed, and I don't think for such a big fella, he's not very good at holding up the ball, but he was quite good at it last night. I presume that's an area of his game that's been worked on, and it's something that he can improve. He won that penalty, no problem with that being given at all, and he struck it. He absolutely leathered it, and I think Oblak's been getting some criticism for diving with his arms sort of like wide open scissors, and it went through the gap. But I think he struck it so hard. Again, I'm going to stick up for goalkeepers like I did yesterday. I think the criticism being directed at Oblak is maybe a little unfair. But I thought Gyökeres played well last night.
The second penalty, okay. Chris says, I'm convinced the ref and VAR listened to Football Weekly and made those decisions purely to wind you up. Now, I did speak on TalkSport yesterday, I spoke to Graham Scott, the former Premier League referee, who is actually a really good talker on this. And what was interesting was he did say that, some referees get directives and they have to give decisions they don't want to give. And it's really annoying if you're a referee because you can't just stick your microphone on and go, I think this law is terrible.
I personally think this is a load of nonsense, but I've been told this is the rule. So here we go. This is a penalty.
But he said that UEFA specifically, but, IFAB, FIFA, etc., are trying to get the Premier League in line with the rest of Europe. Because we established yesterday that is probably not given in the Premier League. The Alphonso Davies one isn't given in the Premier League. And what a relief that is. Because they are so desperate for consistency. And the head of referees, I was listening to 5 Live, and they were saying that I think John Murray had been to like a talk from this guy saying, these are handball penalties, we're getting this right. And John Murray was like, these are all the ones that are really annoying everyone, or certainly annoying me. So I don't know, Lars or Nicky, if you can add anything to this debate. Just makes me so furious, but I'm so aware of repeating myself.
It's kind of not a debate. I know that everyone in England is frustrated by it. I feel frustrated by it sometimes watching it, but this is how it's been applied in most of the content. This is a lot closer to how it's applied in Italy. Just think that this debate only exists in England. And I'm not saying it's whether it's right or wrong, because I don't like it as a penalty. And I think lots of Italians don't like it either. I don't think that's like saying no one in Europe thinks it's annoying. But it's just kind of, everyone's got over it. And I feel like the English audience hasn't got over it.
I haven't got over it.
maybe never will. Maybe shouldn't.
I really want to lead a revolution for this, or like be led by someone more charismatic that people will listen to. Lars?
You're not turning to me for that, man. That's if we can agree on one thing. But no, the only thing I'd give the UEFA standard of refereeing is that at least they are consistent on this. Like, this has been a penalty all year. It has been a penalty for several years, whether we like it or not, and the players at least know what to expect. I had a significant guffaw in my front room when I heard the sort of assorted pundits on the broadcast suggest that maybe the referees had watched yesterday's game in the hotel and looked at the handball that was given there and decided, well, we have to give a silly handball. It was like, lads, have you ever watched a game in the Champions League before? Like, this is how it's refereed. It's always been like this. So it's terrible for the game. I don't like it, but it is at least consistent.
So then there's the non-penalty or the overturned penalty, Barry. Arteta afterwards. So Eze gets touched. He goes down. The ref gives a penalty. He looks at the replay a million times. Arteta says there's no clear and obvious error, and this changes the course of the game. And at this level, I'm sorry, this cannot happen. A referee had to watch it 13 times. What's more clear than that? It's impossible, and we're all fuming about it. And I have a lot of sympathy for Arteta on this, Barry.
I think it was a foul, personally. Apparently, there's some angles available that suggest it wasn't a foul. I haven't seen them, but I have seen an angle that, to me, looks like a foul. And once the referee gives it, I'm not sure how he can overturn it, because I don't know what he saw on the monitor, and apparently he looked at it 12 or 13 times, that made him think he'd made a mistake originally. If that exact situation happened, if the shoe was on the other foot and that was given against Arsenal, I think their fans would be outraged that it was given and would like it to have been overturned.
We're probably all agreed. It seems strange. I mean, I hate it when people yell clear and obvious. It's just a phrase I never wanted to exist in football. But it's true, like, he does get touched. I'm not sure it's a penalty, but once it's given, I can't see how you overturn it. I think it has to stay with the on-field decision if I understand the laws of the game.
I found people's strength of reactions in both directions quite surprising, because, as Baz said, some people seem absolutely certain this wasn't a penalty, seem to think it was ridiculous that this could be considered a penalty, and I don't see it as ridiculous. It is clear contact. How much the discussion is whether or not it's enough contact for it to justify the fall, and I think it's pretty clear. Again, it's clear that there's contact, and it's clear that Lookman makes the most of it, and I think it sits in the grey area, and I'm kind of okay with it being given or not being given. I do think that it's really boring to repeat it, but what everyone's saying, which is, should the referee be overturning it, having made that decision, is kind of the talking point here. One of the interesting points I saw made, there was a former official saying it somewhere I read this morning, saying that maybe one thing that should come out of this is perhaps clubs shouldn't be allowed to decide where the pitch side monitor goes. Maybe that should go somewhere that's definitely away from having someone
Diego
shouting in your
Simeone.
ear. Yeah. I did think, like, I think that everyone's sort of blown all of this up too much. I think also worth saying that at the other end, if this was a penalty, I think Lookman could have had a penalty not very long before and didn't go down.
But the sentence, if he goes down, it's a penalty, is not something we should ever say out loud. Like, the referees should be able to call, there's a foul here, whether the player exaggerates or not.
I agree with you, but, like, Lookman doesn't get a penalty because he stays on his feet and he gets a shot away. And if he does go down, I think he definitely gets a penalty because he gets the wrong side of Ben White, isn't it?
Yeah.
And, there is contact there, and probably more contact than there is on Eze, right?
I was surprised it was overturned, and I understand the frustration of Arsenal fans because these are typically given, I think. But entirely subjectively, irrespective of the laws of the game and current precedent, I would like to see them not given, not just in this case, but in general. Because I think what happens there, it's pretty clear from the replays that Eze feels someone touch him and decides to lie down. And I'm not judging him for that because penalties are so valuable. Like, a penalty is 80% of a goal. They matter so much in the course of a game. So players now are completely conditioned to, if you feel something, any kind of tap, you need to lie down. And if you don't, you might effectively cost your team a goal. Like, this is how it's become now. And I think that's bad for the sport. I don't think it should work like that. I don't think when attackers get into the box, they should be like, "Oh, is someone going to touch me? Is someone going to touch me? I can lie down." Like, this is not good. And to change that, I think two things need to happen, and it's important that they both happen. First of all, yes, you have to give penalties even when they try to get their shot away. And B, you have to not give penalties when people exaggerate. Now, that is my sort of utopian future of refereeing.
Lead the revolution.
Yeah, well, again, we need to find someone actually charismatic to lead the revolution. But what I want to make very clear is that that's sort of utopian thinking from me. In the context of how the game is refereed in the year of our Lord 2026, I would not expect this to be overturned, and I understand why Arsenal fans are furious that it was.
Do you know what the other weird thing with that is, though? Like, because everyone's agreed on this. I feel like I haven't heard one dissenting opinion on this. People saying they were surprised that it was overturned once the referees made the decision. But what is also true is, like, when did you last see a referee go to the monitor and go, "No, I was right"? Like, once they go to the monitor,
once
pretty
in the
much
Premier
like,
League. It was Farai Hillam, Man City 2, Wolves 0. His Premier League debut as a ref. It was a Wolves handball. So rare that you're like, yeah, even if you're wrong, you're like, go for it, ref. Believe in yourself. This is it's like a movie.
And this is where I would want the practice of VAR to change, because the way it is now, they look at it in the booth and then they go, "Hey, we have seen this. Do you want to, and we think it's this. Do you want to look at this?" Whereas I just think it should be, We're not sure about this one. If you want to see a couple of replays, then that's probably a good idea, or maybe something like that. Because I do agree. I think the way it is now, the referees are put under too much pressure to change their minds.
It's worth mentioning as well, like on the actual football part of it, whether or not it's a penalty, I think it's definitely a very risky challenge by Hanko, who also gave away the first penalty. And I know some people were saying couldn't he have gone for the first one because of denial of a scoring opportunity. And I think that with the double jeopardy definitely shouldn't be a red card, but people have talked about it, so worth saying. But I think it's really interesting because we hyper focus on, understandably, these moments around penalties because they can decide games. But Hanko also made some really important challenges up the pitch, pressing high and playing aggressive and turning the ball over in that second half that led to nice attacks for Atletico. So I suppose just worth reminding ourselves that football games are 90 minutes and have moments, don't they?
I mean, yes, Nicky, but also, do you reckon David Hansko, when he got into the dressing room after the game, went to Simeone and said, "Listen, boss, I know I gave away 1.5 penalties, but I did also make some good challenges."
You mentioned Simeone. I mean, it was, Barry, a sort of vintage Simeone performance, wasn't it? John says, is Diego Simeone allowed to be more annoying than Arteta and get away with it, as he looks like a low-key B-tier Sopranos character? I think there's some truth in that for some reason Simeone being annoying is less annoying than Arteta being annoying.
Well, I think it's for the likes of us who aren't exposed to Simeone being annoying as often as we are Arteta, that probably factors into the equation. For example, I don't find Jose Mourinho objectionable and annoying at all at the moment because I don't ever see him, or very rarely see him, because he's not really on my radar. But I see Arteta being annoying almost every week. I don't know if it was on television, but Marca picked it up. I saw it online this morning, that at the end of the game, when the players were walking off the pitch and going down the tunnel, there's an Atletico Madrid crest. I don't know if it's painted into the grass or a carpet, at the entrance to the tunnel on the edge of the pitch. And Ben White had the audacity to walk across the crest rather than go around it in a performative show of respect, of the kind Rio Ferdinand famously filmed himself doing. And Diego Simeone got the hump with him for sullying the crest with his muddy boots. And they had a bit of a shoving match before security intervened.
If you don't want people to walk on something right at the entrance of a thing, I mean, it seems completely
Built a
ridiculous.
house of cards just inside my front door once, and someone came in and knocked it over. Nightmare. Is it legal to put a big club crest in your 6-yard box?
Good idea.
It's we can't. No one's allowed to go here. You can't go there.
Once the dust settles, I can understand, Nicky, that Arteta's annoyed at the moment, but that is not a terrible result. And to go back to the Emirates, and maybe I'm wrong, but I sort of feel like the vibe at the Emirates will be different on a Champions League night to the sort of abject terror of Fulham at home, which we'll get to at the weekend.
Yeah, I think that'll depend a bit on how the game goes, obviously, and I think the fear that we talk about can come in depending on how a game goes. Almost in some ways, you can almost imagine if Arsenal score early in that game and do what they do and immediately retreat into, or we just sit on this now. I do think that for most fans, it feels like the Premier League is this weighty thing that there's been this club's need and this need for validation, and they were so far in front that they shouldn't blow it, that it feels different to the Champions League, where even now, and even if they win this tie, they're not going to be the favourites. It is a different feeling, and I think that's been true not just for Arsenal, to be fair. I think that's true for most clubs playing in Europe, and I think that's why you see quite a few Premier League clubs this season have had these almost pleasant breaks to Europe in between not so pleasant times in the Premier League.
Lars, yesterday someone accused us of becoming a parody of ourselves because Wilson went straight in and this game wasn't that great. And to a lesser extent, Johnny did say he did enjoy the game. It was left to me and Barry to be, chief. This was quite a good game of football. But I just wondered if you wanted to have some, it'd be funny if you said, I thought also it was a, hopeless game, but
thought a lot about that. It gave me a sort of slight crisis of personality because, on the one hand, yes, that was a bit buzzkilly by the Jonathans, Wilson in particular. But I also had to review my own WhatsApp groups, and I realized the two hot takes I had in one of my football chats was, this is mostly a consequence of the sort of ever-increasing concentration of talent amongst a very small group of very wealthy clubs. first of all. And second of all, this is what happens when two teams that are kind of assembled and coached in order to put 4 or 5 goals past financially inferior opponents every week meet each other, because they don't know how to defend, because they don't really do it very often. So it turns out I had the exact same reaction as Jonathan Wilson, which of course has led me to do quite a lot of soul searching in the hours that followed. But I guess here's the thing. I think it's possible to think those things and still enjoy the spectacle of it. I think you have to, because this is kind of what we're left with. Like, this is what modern club football is in 2026, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. Like, the development is that the wealthier clubs are getting a bigger and bigger slice of the pie. They are buying up more and more of the good players, and the concentration of talent is extreme. And I think that's really bad for the sport. But the flip side is, when they meet, like, the technical and physical levels of those games are unbelievable. And I think you have to just kind of enjoy that, because if not, then what's the point? A number of years ago, I had a moment of sort of personal crisis when I just realized I'm not sure I like this sport anymore, because I started getting really fed up with, like, everything Philippe always talks about, like how grubby everything is. And this development that I'm talking about now, how everything seems to always be going in the wrong direction. And even things like the sort of relentless toxicity of a lot of online fandom and stuff like this was starting to really grind me down. I was thinking, do I really enjoy this anymore? And the thing I kind of, in order to find some joy in it, I started to think, well, you have to really appreciate the things you do appreciate. Like, I was covering the Premier League at the time, so I was going to a lot of Chelsea games, and I think it was the season where Eden Hazard just went completely wild and was incredibly good. And I just found I really enjoy watching this slightly short Belgian man run with the ball across the grass and go past people. It's like an objectively beautiful thing to watch. And you can find, like, you can be aware of all these negative trends that Wilson and other panelists on this podcast are very, very good at pointing out. And I think it's important to point them out. I think you can be aware of those things and still find things that you enjoy about the sport. You can carve out some comfort amongst the doom, which has become something of a mantra for me in general in life. If you cannot watch that game last night or the night before and just marvel at the speed and the technical quality and the audacity and the fact that you have two coaches who let them play like that in a Champions League semi-final as well, who don't try to just stop the game from taking place like some coaches do, you have to find the joy in that. I guess the counter argument is that is a bit like going to, I don't want to name but one of these undemocratic, slightly terrible places where the buildings are all very shiny and beautiful, but like the secret ingredient is oppression. There's a bit of that as well.
Listening to great music of insert, disgraced musician, etc.
I still think, like, it's okay to like the nice things. You know the saying, not seeing the forest for all the trees. I think sometimes we don't see the trees for all the forests. And I think there's an element of that. Like, there were some good trees in that game.
No, I agree with you. Speaking of finding joy, because you have to find joy, on the radio yesterday, and this is not related, Charlie Baker and I, for reasons that are too drawn out to get into, we're discussing who was the better singer out of Linvoy Primus, Portsmouth legend, and Craig Johnson, inventor of the Predator. And we suggested we got them both to sing In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. And Linvoy Primus, nicest man in football, was listening and sent me a voice note singing In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. So, that gave me some joy. In Europe tonight, Forest host Villa in the first leg of the Europa League semi-final. Braga hosting Freiburg in the other semi. And then Palace are away to Shakhtar. In the Conference League, Rayo Vallecano hosting Strasbourg in the other semi-final. We'll cover those games on Monday. And in part 2, we will do a Premier League preview. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. So the top of the Premier League looks like this. Arsenal 73 from 34. Man City 70 from 33. Arsenal play Fulham on Saturday at 5:30, with Man City going to Everton on Monday. So it is, Barry, definitely an advantage to go first as long as you win.
Arsenal have never lost in 32 home league games against Fulham, apparently.
Really?
Yeah. But not losing is not enough for Arsenal. They probably need to win. The one thing I saw watching the game last night, Atletico were very dominant in the second half. I thought Arsenal were a little bit lucky to come away with a draw, if I'm honest. But they look very tired. They have played 57 games this season. I think Fulham have played 42, something like that, considerably fewer anyway. Fulham can still qualify for Europe, Whether they're that fussed about qualifying for Europe or not is another matter. Arsenal should win this game, home against Fulham. No excuses, but I know they're going to be preoccupied by the return leg against Atletico. They do look quite nervous in their league games. They look very nervous against Newcastle last time out, and they look tired, and it understandably so. I did hear someone talking on the radio the other day that Arteta perhaps should have used his squad more. He has a big squad, but he doesn't use quite a lot of players. Christian Nurgaard has barely got a look in this season, which I don't understand. Arteta clearly doesn't have any faith in him, and I'm not sure why, because Nurgaard, I think, is a really good player. Well, you think maybe this is a game to throw him in and give Declan Rice a rest, but one suspects that won't happen.
Because a lot's been made of, look, they've built this squad where there's 2 players for every position. I know not everyone's fit. What starting 11 would you like to drop at 4 p.m. or whenever it comes out?
I do think it's particularly like the question like up front with Gyökeres. I thought I agree with what Lars was saying. I thought played a particular kind of game that Arsenal needed to play away from home in Europe, and it was a battling game, and he won a lot of aerial ball, and he did the things that were needed of him. And I think that those have been the settings where he has done better work for Arsenal. And I think that I'm not just certain that's the kind of game they need at all against Fulham. It's going to be a completely different kind of game. You're going to need to play on the front foot against them. I love Barry jinxing it there by saying I've never lost at home to Fulham, because we know they can. All these records are made to be broken. But yeah, it needs to be a front-footed performance, and I'm not certain he's thrived in those settings. So who does start up front, given that Havertz isn't available? I wish I had the answer, Max, and I think the answer is not easy to pull out. I don't think it's as simple as sticking one particular player in is going to change everything, because really what it comes down to is to a great degree mindset and what players are physically capable of as well at this time of the season, because it's really boring to keep coming back to it. But I did have this conversation with some friends. I've got them in my text still, like months ago, about how this Arsenal season just has such strong echoes for me of Inter last season, when Inter was significantly better than everyone else in Italy last season, in my opinion, which Arsenal aren't. So the gap was bigger, and Inter still managed to win nothing because they tried to do everything and they just wiped themselves out. And the real problem for Arsenal right now, in my opinion, isn't actually about which players are in the starting 11. It's that the team looks burned out, and I don't know how you pull that back from the brink this close to the end of the season.
Yeah. If they do win it, it will be like a marathon runner winning, just like falling over the line, and then just like get the bouncy shoes. They'll just all be vomiting, and they have to have like a massive tin foil, like just like wrapped around them, won't they? Man City go to Everton on Monday night. Then they've got the cup final, haven't they, City? But apart from that, it's an easier run for them, even if their games aren't necessarily easier, Lars.
That's an interesting point. Is it an easier run? Because I don't think City necessarily thrive in games where they have to unlock the opponents. They've seemed to be like quite happy with the open games this year, which is not what we're used to seeing. They are a very unpep-like City this year. So these games against Everton and Brentford, and to an extent Palace, though of course Palace will be distracted, these are very big banana skins. I mean, this is my hot take about the run-in. I don't think either of City or Arsenal will win the rest of their games. There's a boo-boo coming for probably both of them. And I think City's run-in is kind of tricky on paper. I
agree with you.
And I think Everton... I'm aware that David Moyes' record against the top teams is not good. I mean, statistically, it's not great. I just think the way Everton's set up, they're quite compact, they're quite physical. I don't think necessarily Holland and Simeone and the lads will have the kind of space to run into that they like, and I think this could be tricky for them.
The relegation fight then, Leeds have a brilliant chance to basically guarantee safety. They are home to Burnley on Friday night, and a win would take them above Newcastle. Then on Saturday at 3, West Ham go to Brentford. Brentford haven't won in 6. Do you think that will continue, Barry? Or do you think West Ham will get something on the board? They are 2 points ahead of Tottenham at the moment.
Brentford are undeniably having a good season. If you'd offered every Brentford fan their current position at the start of the season, they'd have bitten your hand off. They've stopped winning. They're throwing away points. I thought they played very well against Manchester United, just couldn't put away enough chances to beat them. I think they're in a position of vulnerability, and West Ham need to exploit that. Could be a tough game for West Ham. Brentford need to win to keep their hopes of qualifying for Europe again, but like Fulham, it's difficult to know whether They're fussed about qualifying for the Conference League. Will they have the squad depth to be able to compete on 4 fronts next season? Not. They certainly don't have it at the moment.
The players definitely will want to, right? There's no doubt that they will be. I don't think that gets into anyone's mind at Brentford, I'm not sure we don't want to win this. I'm not just trying to pump Brentford up for my own selfish dreams, but I just don't think that comes.
Would be weird.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with you, to be honest. I'm not sure if I was a footballer, I'd be that fussed about playing in the Europa Conference League. I think it's aggravation I'd happily do without.
I mean, but there are many reasons why you're not a footballer, Barry, but
Seems like
I just think your idea of what goes on in the mind of professional footballers is maybe a bit happy-clappy and idealistic.
No, I think they all want to win I think any level. I mean, that suggests that like teams in League One don't want to get into the playoffs because, can't really be, it's no different, like for those Brentford players,
I think
they haven't played in Europe.
I think getting the playoffs to get promotion is a lot different to qualifying for the Europa Conference League. Just one thing, look, we'll agree to differ on this one, but or agree to disagree, but Josh Da Silva was in the Brentford squad that went to Old Trafford the other night. That was his first time in a Brentford squad in 816 days. He's been out with injury. Before that, he was out for 4 months. Before that, a year. And before that, another 18 months. So, wow. I mean, the guy has just had such a run of luck with injuries. It would be lovely to see him out on the pitch again before the end of the season.
Yeah, good player. Lars, Spurs go to Villa on Sunday. I suspect hoping that Villa somehow get a lot of calf strains against Forest, and it's very tight. Whatever happens between Villa and Forest, we don't need one side to hammer the other one.
Aston Villa, like those of us who spent the entire first half of the season going, this cannot continue with Villa and their weird long shots and the XG and all the rest of it. Like, we have kind of been proven right a little bit. Like, they haven't been good since the turn of the year in the Premier League. They've got, I think, 4 wins in the last 14 in the Premier League. If the league started on the 1st of January, they'd be 13th. So, like, the regression monster came for Aston Villa. But they're still probably, almost certainly going to make the Champions League just because the other teams up there, in particular you, Chelsea, are such a total mess. So they are going to get away with it, I think. But I think if you're Spurs, on paper, Villa they're 5th in the league. Unai Emery, good players, scary stuff. But Aston Villa, who've got this Europa League game tonight, that might not be the worst opponent in the world to have at this point in time. Because, again, they've not been great in the league recently, Villa.
If you looked at the league table starting in January, it wouldn't look great for Tottenham either.
No, I can tell you they would be second from bottom. They'd had 1 point more than Burnley. They'd be 19th. I've got it in front of me here.
Both ends of the table. It feels like a weekend where the order of the fixtures really matters. And you were saying before about, it's good for Arsenal if they win. It's terrible if they don't, right? Because then City look at that and go, they can win. I think it's the same a bit for Tottenham, isn't it? Because that West Ham game, when you look at West Ham's remaining games, this feels like one where they kind of need the points because the other games they've got, they've got to play Arsenal, they've got away at Newcastle, I think it is. So this one feels like they've got to take something from it. And so if they lose, as Lars says, I don't think Villa are that scary at the moment. I don't think Villa are that scary. But if West Ham have won, then it feels a lot heavier, doesn't it? Then, God, we've got to get a result. But if West Ham have lost and it's a chance to gain things.
It is possible that I have jinxed this phenomenally now. Kinski will have headbutted the post again and everything is going badly wrong.
And no Xavi Simons, and I think Solanke's out as well. So that is an issue for Tottenham. Forest go to Chelsea. I guess if West Ham and Spurs have won by Monday night, then that puts more pressure on Forest going to a Liam Rossini-less Chelsea. Mikel Mudrik's appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sport after he received a 4-year playing ban from the FA for the use of a bland substance. No, not a bland substance.
Porridge.
Margarine. A banned substance, meldonium. He's not played a competitive match since November 2024 after he failed a drugs test while on international duty. Under the terms of any 4-year ban, he'd not be eligible for selection until December 2028. If an appeal to CAS was successful, he could possibly return next year. His contract with Chelsea runs until 2030. They wouldn't comment on on the news saying they had to let the process take its course, and the FA are not commenting on the proceedings either. Newcastle play Brighton, 3:00 on Saturday. I mean, one win for Newcastle, they're surely safe. But if it doesn't come, the pressure will ramp up, Baz. 4 defeats in a row. Piff are pulling the plug on Live Golf. And if you're a Newcastle fan, you would be going, that seems strange. My understanding, for what it's worth, I don't know if I heard this on the pod or on the radio, is that football is still something they really care about, and they have the World Cup in 2034. And so owning a Premier League side is good. But, like, it's interesting.
The Snooker World Championships are on at the moment as well. And earlier this week, all the top players received an email telling them that Saudi Arabia have abandoned that lucrative tournament they hosted, I think, the last 2 years. It has equal prize money or even better prize money than the World Championships. And I think the players were under the impression they were contracted to play in it for X number of years, but that's been sacked off. So they're upset about that because it was a nice little earner for them. As far as Newcastle United are concerned, I think, is it this week or next week? They're having the Power Summit at Methven Hall, a posh hotel in Northumberland, where the guys from PIF are come over, and Eddie Howe and assorted other club members of the club hierarchy have to go in and explain themselves. Could be a few awkward conversations there and finger pointing and whatnot. As far as their training ground is concerned, they keep talking or feeding info to local journalists saying that, we've identified where the new plush new training ground is going to be built, but they haven't even bought the land yet, let alone stuck a spade in the ground. So that seems to be being put on the long finger. They still don't know whether they're going to do up St. James's Park or move somewhere else altogether. So Newcastle are nowhere near where I think most of their fans, and probably Eddie Howe as well, thought they would be when PIF took over, 4 years ago now?
On the Snooker World Championships, I don't know if you saw this. It's not related to football, so my apologies. And I can't vouch for its accuracy, but it did make me laugh. Watching the snooker, John Higgins complained about a noise from the audience. The ref told him the sound came from a person's breathing device, to which Higgins asked, could they turn it off? It feels a little bit harsh. Yes, Lars,
the snooker, because I've been exposed to some of the snooker because it's on in my gym. So when I'm sort of bored out of my mind on the treadmill, there's snooker right in front of me. They all look very sad. Is this because this sort of Saudi Arabian tournament, or is that just how snooker players look?
No, they're just generally solemn in demeanour.
Yeah, there's not a lot of, they don't see a lot of daylight, I guess, do they? You can't just sit. You also just can't just sit grinning wildly. It would just look odd if you were sat in your chair with your waistcoat on grinning. Anyway, that'll do for part 2. Part 3, we'll give you some EFL permutations. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. At the top of the championship then, it's Ipswich, Millwall or Middlesbrough that are going to go up automatically. Ipswich host QPR, which looks straightforward on paper. Millwall host relegated Oxford, so that also looks straightforward if Ipswich slip up. And if they both slip up, then Middlesbrough have to win at Wrexham, which is not easy because Wrexham themselves need a win to give themselves the best chance of getting in the playoffs, and they need to win by more than Hull win to be sure of getting in the playoffs, because they have a one better goal difference than Hull at the moment. Hull are home to form side Norwich. Meanwhile, Derby plays Sheffield United, so they have the easiest game, and they are 1 point behind Hull and Wrexham. So they could sneak into the playoffs. Southampton definitely in the playoffs and definitely can't get automatically promoted. In League One, the top two are confirmed, Lincoln and Cardiff, so it's a bum fight for the playoffs. Stockport need a point, as do Bradford. Then it'll be between Stevenage, Luton and Plymouth to get in. Stevenage in the box seat. At the bottom, it is between Leyton Orient and Exeter. Orient host Burton, who are safe. Exeter host Bradford, who are in the playoffs, do need something. So it's very much advantage Orient. Stephen says, are Cambridge going to bottle it? So it's between MK Dons and Bromley for the title. We go to Crewe, who are 10th, have nothing to play for, but apparently we've only won 2 away games against the top 10 this season. If we don't win, Salford go to Crawley, who are fighting for their lives. And if neither of us win, Notts County can jump over us by beating Bristol Rovers at home. Oh, God, the agony of it.
Max, if you could only choose one out of Cambridge promoted or Tottenham staying up, which is it?
I'm afraid I'm Cambridge till I die, Nicky. So there's no contest. But I sort of feel them as quite different, even though they would just be one league apart. After if that turned out, I'm almost liking it to liking chips and air. Like chips are nice, but like. Push comes to shove, I can do without them. Much like the man at the snooker, air is important for my life. And that's where Cambridge fit in all of this. But it's a very good question. At the bottom, mightily close for who drops out. Barrow are probably down, but they're home to Newport. So they can drag Newport into this. Barrow would need a ridiculous win and then Crawley to lose massively. But as we've said, Crawley plays Salford, so they could get battered. Harrogate are home to Barnet, who have an outside chance of the playoffs. Barrow have 36 points, Harrogate 39, Crawley 39, Newport 40 and Tranmere 40. Tranmere play Grimsby, also going for the playoffs. So very rare that the bottom of League Two goes this far. So good luck to everybody. To Italy, Nicky, briefly, can you tell us about the refereeing scandal? What's happened there?
Yeah, fairly major story in Italy. Certainly gobbled up all the headlines at the beginning of this week about the head of the referees committee for the top two divisions. Gianluca Rocchi stood down because he's under investigation by the Milan prosecutor's office. So did Andrea Gervasoni, who is the video assistant referee supervisor for the same body. Rocchi is not going to be interviewed, actually. We thought he was going to be interviewed by the prosecutor today, but his lawyer has said that he's decided to make a decision for his client not to go ahead with that until the charges are made more clear to them. Gervasoni, I believe, is going to be interviewed today on Thursday. We still may not know the full extent of everything that's under investigation. Should be said that as of today, they've been pretty clear that no clubs are under investigation. This is a case relating specifically to refereeing and how certain refereeing decisions were made about which referees get designated to certain matches, and also about how VAR is used. There was this particular game that was picked up where you had two officials discussing a VAR decision in the game between Udinese and Parma last season, where Florian Thauvins' shot hit the arm of Boton Baloch inside the penalty box. The VAR official, Daniele Paterna, they have a situation similar to in England, where the VAR headquarters is all done from the International Broadcast Centre, was seen basically saying not a penalty with his assistant, and then turns off camera. On the camera you can see, and clearly gets a gesture from someone that perhaps this is worth reconsidering, because you can see him mouthing it's a penalty, and then he tells the referee to have a look at it again, and then ends up giving a decision for a penalty. So discussion about who exactly that was who said that to him and whether that was the appropriate protocol. It's a lot of stuff about protocol and stuff about designating referees, but of course we're 20 years on from Calciopoli, which was a big scandal about how referees were designated. So it is very tense and sensitive ground. But again, just to say, at the moment, at least, the investigators have said no clubs under investigation. This is an investigation about the refereeing processes. Also worth saying that these people we're talking about, Gervasoni, Rocchi, Paterna, who's the VAR official, they have all denied wrongdoing, and it's an open case. So to be clear, this is all very much under investigation for now.
All right, and you've written a column, so go and read Nicky's column, as you always should, of course. Let's finish with this email from Sasha, who says, Dear Max, Barry and all of the panel, despite being an avid listener since my discovery of podcasts in the 2010s, this is my first correspondent. I have listened to the pod avidly since, never missing an episode. Wow. This has required increasing stoicism recently, as I'm a Scottish Arsenal fan who firmly believes the season should have ended in November. Back then, we'd qualified for the World Cup and the quadruple was in the bag. Sadly, I'm a creature of habit and have continued to listen to every episode, even as Scotland and Arsenal appear determined to outdo each other in who can serve up the drab of football. As the quad bottle nears its painful climax, it would mean a lot to me if Barry could offer up some sage marriage advice before I'm lucky enough to marry Eleanor this Saturday, the 2nd of May. She has no real interest in football, but finds listening to you lot a fair price to pay for me driving us up to our wedding in Scotland. Throughout our relationship, your work has provided the listening entertainment for all our travels, and Eleanor is regularly aghast by her accidental knowledge of football acquired passively on these occasions. She's kept up to date with Barry's half marathon and Max's weans, and probably has a good idea about where Sergio Ramos is, as the rest of us. A shout out from Barry would go a long way to ensuring our kids will get to listen to Football Weekly in years to come, even after it makes me wince with memories of my own vasectomy. Cheers, Sasha. So off we go, Barry. Sasha and Eleanor driving to their wedding, currently listening to this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how far the journey is, but they should possibly have left their wedding till after the World Cup, because if Sasha is to keep up his record of having listened to every single episode since 2010 or whatever. He's going to have a lot to listen to during the World Cup, I reckon. But yeah, I wish them every happiness. I have attended one wedding in Scotland, which was at St. Andrews. And if they're getting married there, they're very lucky because it's a beautiful location. But I'm sure there are plenty of other beautiful Scottish wedding locations.
Yeah, it's a niche. On the off chance you're not getting married at St Andrews, we also hope you have a nice time.
Incidentally, the girl, Madeline, whose wedding I was at in Scotland, I lived with her in a flat share when I first arrived in London. And she got in touch with me recently to send me a picture of her son, who I presumed to be about 8 years old. Right. He's 20 and he's a cage fighter. And he looks ripped. Like he looks like Cristiano Ronaldo. That ripped. Yeah, I was stunned. But the Madeline I know, I can't imagine her at a cage fight, but that is what her son does.
We're all aging. It's happening to everyone all at the same time. Anyway, that'll do for today. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Lars.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks, Nicky.
Thanks.
Cheers, Baz.
Thank you.
Football Weekly is produced by Silas Gray, and our executive producer is Joel Grove, and we'll be back on Monday.